Hello guys, welcome to Screen Bench. This is Mohit Musani, and today we have Mr. Eric Schumaker with us. Eric has been a multi-award winning TV, multimedia actor, director, producer, and he has a reputation of going deep inside his characters, and he does get involved in his characters emotionally, physically, psychologically. So, hello Eric, how are you doing?
All things considered, with the state of the world right now, I'm okay.
With the state of the world, you're okay.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
that's nice. That's nice. So, what's been up, Eric? What's your latest project?
Wow, that's a long answer. We have a
Uh-huh.
lot of stuff going on, although it's very complex right now. But
Uh-huh.
I think the most recent things that I can actually talk about, some of them are kind of top secret right
Yeah, of
now.
course, I do
Um,
understand the confidentiality issues.
but we have the streaming series Horse Camp, which is
Uh-huh.
a modern Western comedy series, is currently in post-production for its first season, and I
Mm-hmm.
played principal character in that, and that was a lot of fun. And also the feature film The Love Song of William H. Shaw,
Uh-huh.
which is a sequel to a nerd comedy set largely in a comic book store and a game store, called Revenge of Zoe. Revenge of Zoe's out right now, and Love Song is currently in post-production as well. So we were able to finish
Right.
principal photography on both of those in between big COVID waves. So um, so those are the most recent things that I can talk about. We have a bunch of
Uh-huh.
other stuff kind of in process that's somewhat secret. Some of it is happening in this studio that I'm sitting in, which is a
Uh-huh.
an audio studio, and that might give some hint as to what's going on. But
Right.
um, and many other pieces flying. When you produce and when you're working as a multimedia company, there's always many different pieces of many different things in play.
Right. So, Eric, you've been one of the only handful people who've actually played the role of What Earth and Doc Holliday at the same time. Uh, the most recent of the two in which you feature is Tombstone Rashomon. So,
Hmm.
would you like to comment on that? Could you
Sure, yeah.
shed some light on it?
Happy to. So yeah, so Tombstone. So first of all, for those who may not be familiar, the characters Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday are historical. Were real people who existed in the old American West. They were Wyatt Earp was a fa- for to they were very complicated people, but I guess the short summary is that Wyatt was a very famous lawman, and Doc was a gambler and a dentist and quite a few other things, and a great, a very good gunfighter.
Uh-huh.
And so they're most famous for having been involved in what is known as the gunfight at the OK Corral, which was immortalized in the movie Tombstone.
Right.
And although Doc would remind us that it actually didn't take place at the OK Corral in Tombstone. It took place on Fremont Street,
I see.
outside of the corral. So anyway, so those people have been featured as characters in many
Uh-huh.
films, and so I played Wyatt in a television series for Fox TV,
Uh-huh.
and I played Doc in a movie called Tombstone Rashomon, which was directed by the wonderful and legendary Alex Cox, who's best
Exactly.
known for films like Repo Man and Sid and Nancy, and a huge list of other amazing projects. And I was cast as Doc. The film it's billed as a mockumentary.
Uh-huh.
And what it was in the story of the incident at Fremont Street, or the gunfight at the OK Corral. We only know about about it because of what people said happened. And this was, of course, before there was video, before there was recorded audio. So a lot of different people who witnessed the event had different versions of the story. Nobody's really clear on exactly what happened or why. They just know people got shot, and and there were things that happened afterwards that were corroborated by a lot of witnesses. But everybody had a different perspective, and of course, everybody had different allegiances. They told the story differently. And so, of course, the different film versions of that incident have also been wildly different and greatly fictionalized.
Yes.
Alex, as I understand it, attempted to um, try to get closer to the truth and realized that because there were so many versions recorded by reporters at the time, that instead he would give it the Rashomon treatment. And
Uh-huh.
Rashomon is a famous film made by Akira Kurosawa in Japan, which essentially in that story, a murder occurs and an investigator comes to a small village
I see.
and gets several people to tell the investigator the story of what happened, and everyone tells a completely different story. So
Uh-huh.
Alex did the same thing with Tombstone, and we, for example, did the gunfight 6 different ways. We dramatized it in 6 different ways, depending upon who was telling the story. It was fascinating,
Wow.
and yeah, it
Seems
was really,
really
really
interesting.
interesting.
Very interesting.
It was. I mean, a huge amount of research went into the film to
Yeah.
try to get as close to accuracy on the different versions of the story as possible. There's certainly a bit of a humor aspect to the film as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a lot of seriousness. And one of the neat things about the film, one thing that I found particularly intriguing is that it adds a little bit of a science fiction element where before at the beginning of the film, you're told that a time traveling news crew tried to go back in time to find out what really happened,
Yes.
and they missed the gunfight, so they had to interview people.
Uh-huh.
And so there's a segment in the film, throughout the film, various characters are put on camera and interviewed.
Uh-huh.
And so I got to do an interview as if a television crew was interviewing Doc Holliday. And that was really a blast. And then, of course, we recreated the gunfight and did, horse riding and various other scenes that might or might not have actually happened in the real
Yeah.
history.
So Eric, you have this interest in sci-fi, and you do go as a guest speaker in sci-fi conventions and all. So where does this interest come from? Is it something that you always had since childhood, or yeah, something inspired you?
Yeah, I mean, I was raised in an artistic family and an
Of
acting
course.
family. And so I guess you could say that I was always encouraged to imagine things, and I found it fascinating to think about and learn about different people, different cultures, different ways of thinking.
Right.
And so I guess sci-fi was kind of a natural fit there because really at the base of it, a science fiction or fantasy fan
Uh-huh.
is somebody who likes to imagine different worlds and different cultures. I mean,
Exactly.
you know, you think Star Trek, there's so many different races. I mean, they've actually they've actually translated Hamlet into Klingon.
Uh-huh.
I mean, there's the language is fully developed at this point. So I became fascinated with sci-fi and fantasy as a kid, definitely. And then when I was guess well, preteens, I went to a Star Trek convention in San Francisco, California, where I
Wow.
was living at the time, and there I met very briefly. Obviously, there's a line of people, but I met a number of great performers. One of them I got to see Nichelle Nichols, who was the original Lieutenant Uhura on Star Trek, speak, and she was incredibly inspirational and really fascinating.
Wait.
And actually, that was uh, one of the things that she spoke about was the social impact of Star Trek, and
Uh-huh.
that really got me thinking about the importance of science fiction and fantasy in terms of how you could approach really challenging subjects and get and stimulate conversation about them through something that was fantastical and extremely entertaining.
Yeah.
And so I fell deeper and deeper in love with it.
It's
I
a
also
different. It's sorry to cut you. It's a different
yeah, no, quite all right.
level of creativity and your openness to imagination that most people can't even think about it, and you're kind of sitting down there creating a weird species in your head is kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
bad. You gotta reach a point of a very liberal, creative mind where you allow yourself to imagine whatever you want to. If I'm correct, please
Right.
say so.
Yeah, yeah, no. It's
Yeah.
exactly that. It allows you to really
Yeah.
um imagine a lot of what ifs
Uh-huh.
and it's and get really creative with the with the world you create. And so I've
Exactly.
since befriended a lot of authors in the field
Yeah.
and a lot of other creators in the field, and that is I have a lot of there's a lot of genres that I appreciate in the arts, but I would say sci-fi and fantasy are easily
Uh-huh.
my favorite. I group them together. A lot of people would separate them, but I think it's really all part of the same uh, uh, big genre, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and so I'm very much in love with that. I have to admit as well, when I was a kid, one of my mentors, who was my dad's best friend, they both grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, not from artistic families, and they both became actors,
Right.
interestingly enough. And his best friend was a fellow named Paul Mantee, who starred in a film called Robinson Crusoe on Mars in the 60s, before the U.S. went to the moon. And so it was a science fiction film about an astronaut who crash lands on Mars
Right.
and meets someone else. Really, really neat film, and he was brilliant in it. And so that was probably also part of the influence as well, because we were really proud of him. You know, he was a close family friend, and there he is. He's got the lead role in this film, and it's science fiction. It's really good, and I'm sure it got my brain
Yeah.
thinking in that direction as well.
If I add my 2 cents over here, I think fiction leads to a more developed and more real, you know, uh, how do I put it? I mean, fiction inspires uh, the reality of the coming years. Like we used to watch so many gadgets in the old
Yeah, yeah,
007 movies, and today a lot of those gadgets are actually there in place and they exist. And
it's very true.
you can
Yeah,
control your car from your cell phone. You can
yeah.
do a lot of things that the Bond movies used to have. So
It's, in fact, many of the scientists who developed a lot of modern technologies
exactly,
have said that they were specifically inspired by
by
science
fiction,
fiction. Several
exactly,
of them said, like the cell phone, the
exactly,
creators of the cell phone said that they were inspired by the Star Trek communicator.
exactly.
Um, Tablets, well, again, back to Star Trek, you
Yeah,
had the little tricorders. They were basically a really early vision of a tablet.
exactly.
And yeah, the great science fiction author Robert Heinlein coined a phrase, speculative fiction. That's what he called science fiction.
Wow.
And I think that's a really great way of putting it. It's
Yes,
really
very,
about
very
thinking about
precise
what
term.
could be,
Yeah,
what could be. That's what it's really all about.
exactly.
And that's what's so valuable, I think, about science fiction, because it challenges us to go, okay, what if this happened? What if that happened? And what could be good about it? What could be bad about it? How could we be better? How could we be worse?
Exactly.
Um, and or how could we simply be the same but with more technology? What's in the core of the species, and will it change as we have more options, or will we just pretty much be the same with more stuff?
Right.
It's yeah,
I get your point. I
very
get your
fascinating.
point. So,
Yeah.
Eric, you do belong to a, film influenced family. Uh, I think both your parents are um, into the entertainment industry, and I read somewhere that all this influence of creativity and you know entertainment industry started building in you ever since you were 6. So is there some,
That's about, well,
yeah,
sorry, yeah,
so
potentially earlier from what I hear.
earlier than that?
So it's just that's just when I remember it.
Oh, yeah. So
So my dad tells a story about we were in Los Angeles and he was auditioning for a play, a Shakespeare play,
right.
and he had taken my mom and I with him to the audition. So we were sitting in the seats in the theater watching him audition, and he was doing this he had the skull and he was doing the alas poor Yorick, I knew him Horatio speech, and something caught his eye and he broke character and looked into the audience and I was gone. I wasn't there. And he freaked out for a second and looked in front of him. I was standing on the stage in front of him.
Wow.
I don't remember this at all. This is the way he tells the story. So he put the skull down and finished the speech to me, and we
Wow.
maintained eye contact through the speech.
Wow.
That's when he knew I was going to be an actor.
That's when he knew that you were born to be
Yeah,
an actor,
yeah.
and
They're
not
like, no,
just an
I
actor.
need to be
You're
up
a
on the stage,
director.
Dad.
You're a you're a producer. You're an actor, and God knows, man, you're everything entertainment. You do radio commercials. You do streaming service. Uh, Streaming service series and marketing videos and whatnot. I'm personally very, very impressed by how much a man can do in the spaces of creativity and art.
Well, thanks. I mean, these are all most of my colleagues who have produced or directed have done many different things. I mean, it's just, the nature of the business. You kind of figure out what your niche is, but you
Excellent.
figure that out through doing a lot of different things, and opportunities come and you make the best of them. And in fact, I was just reading a book by the brother of a friend of mine. The fellow who wrote the book is Pete Kazacek, who's a famous cinematographer. He was the director of photography for The Nightmare Before Christmas and a whole bunch of other really big films. And he talks about his genesis. He was doing small commercials in a small town, doing stop motion commercials and animated commercials. He worked for a television station, a radio station, and eventually was running this multi-camera rig on an incredibly, huge, very big money production
Yeah,
for Tim Burton that's now legendary. That took years to produce, and you know, so that's just sort of the nature of the game.
yeah,
I focus on certain areas and do less of some things and more of others,
more
and
of
then every
something.
once in a while something will come up where,
Yeah,
okay, we'll do that commercial or we'll do
yeah.
that other thing.
So you are
I
very,
should add also.
you are very,
Hmm?
what should I say, selective about what you do and what you don't do.
You have to be. I mean, this is part. It is. I'm an artist, but
Of
this is
course,
also a business.
of
And
course.
as you mature in business, you have to really understand where you're going to put your time and your resources.
Exactly.
If you try to do too many kinds of things at the same time, then you don't really become completely successful in any one thing.
Exactly. You don't
So
create your own aura. Like some people
yeah, 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 yeah,
fit perfectly for action movies, some fit perfectly for let's say romantic movies. And if you're doing
sure.
everything at the same time, then nobody is sure of who you really are. So
Yeah, yeah, it's true. You haven't
yeah,
really defined yourself. I think, as an actor, it's funny that comes up because as an actor, I'm more difficult to define than a lot of people, and I've kind of become comfortable with that.
yeah,
Most casting directors will tell you that you need to pick an image, you need to pick this is kind of how you're promoting yourself, this is what you are, so
uh-huh,
that it's easy for people to cast you. And I guess I'm not as easy to cast because my stock in trade really is to disappear,
uh-huh.
to become someone who's different, and I love that I love
Of course.
challenging myself to stretch, you know. So I gain weight, lose weight, walk differently, talk differently, gain accents, lose accents, get completely, be someone from the past or the future. That's really what I love to do, is to become someone else for a while.
Hmm.
But it doesn't make for, it's not like you can say that you always pick me for the romantic lead. In fact,
Right.
usually most people don't, much as I do enjoy that. I love playing romance movies. But you tend to pick me for the weird outlier character that nobody else really wants to attempt.
Yeah.
Um, and so, but that being said, so that's I guess you could say that's my niche as an actor, is
Of
to
course.
is to do the challenging things a lot. But uh, but as a producer and director, you have to know what you're focused on. So we really do primarily focus on narrative fiction,
Right.
and on mostly science fiction and fantasy projects. And that's really our main drive, creative projects like that.
Right.
Although again, occasionally we do take the odd commercial or something like that here and there,
Yeah.
when it seems to be the right thing to do for the right people.
Exactly. Of course,
And
you
that,
can't just, put things into boxes. You have to, you know, uh, give it a closer look and see if that kind of thing fits for you or not. So, yeah.
sure, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, Eric, you're also the president of Silai Studios. Did I pronounce that correctly?
No, but most people don't. Just like my name, it's Sealy Studios.
Sealy Studios, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So, you're the president over there, and could you highlight on the work you do over there, and how is it,
Sure.
running the studio and, taking up the position of a president? And that automatically means that you got to take care of a lot of guys and a lot of resources. So, how is that? Does it get too much for you, or are you able to manage that swiftly?
Well, we're in a really odd circumstance right now. Things have changed a lot for the company. So the company was founded by my very dear friend Don Dem,
Yeah.
who was fairly well known in the sort of the nerd culture community, particularly within the board game and role playing game world. And he years and years ago he started a podcast about the board game world, and it had over 2 million downloads. It was very popular, and he was a frequent guest speaker, and did a lot of really cool stuff. And eventually that led to the company making branded products for big game companies. The biggest product the company did during his leadership was called the Bob and Angus Show, and it
Oh,
was
really?
a puppet show,
Yeah, yeah.
and it was. Have you seen the show by chance?
Yeah, I have actually.
Oh, really? How cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
it ran almost 200 episodes. It ran for 13 seasons,
of course.
and it was a funny, cute show for Mayfair Games, a really big
It's
game company. I'm
hysterical.
surprised.
It's hysterical.
Yeah,
I mean
I'm
the
glad you've seen it. It was a
yeah.
wonderful
I
show.
mean the way the comic line goes and all the things are put up in the right place at the right time.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
it
Really great
just
scripts,
gives
great performers.
makes you laugh till your stomach aches.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so Don did a really great job, and he had a wonderful team working on it, and great puppeteers, great actors, great
Yeah.
writers. And I started working with him.
Very different thing.
It really was, and it was very. I wasn't part of the I wasn't really part of the making of that show. I consulted on it a bit for Don, and
Yeah, yeah.
occasionally did some guest spots on it and so on. But really, it was he and another team that were making it, and he showed me how they did it, and it was really complicated. Making a puppet show for video is very weird.
Uh-huh.
Just down to like,
It's a very
you
crazy
have
idea.
actors. It really is, and it was a great show. It was really well done, and so that ran for quite a while. Eventually,
Oh my God.
sure,
Sorry, my cell phone was ringing.
no problem. It
All
happens. It
gangster
happens
style,
to all of us.
huh?
It happens to all of us.
Yeah,
The worst is when somebody is in the middle of a scene on a set and
yeah,
they forgot to turn their cell phone off. Oh my gosh.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
um, So yeah, it the company eventually started moving more towards the creation of non-branded products and not and less things for clients, and that was when I came aboard to try to help move us more into that direction, the creation of original narrative projects and that weren't brand dependent.
So you do
And
have great
unfortunately,
marketing and branding sense as well.
thank you. Yeah, it's I mean I've had to study it a lot and. You got, you just you need to know these things if you're running a business, and
Yeah.
you need to.
I mean,
Um,
sorry to cut you again.
oh
That's
no,
a
quite all
very
right.
bad
Yeah,
habit that I have.
no, no
But as
problem, no
I see
problem.
you, I feel like you're a great marketeer, and then you're an actor, and you know how to market yourself in different niche, and that's exactly how you do it. You go about it. Uh,
Yeah.
so I think more than an actor, you're a greater marketeer. That's just my two
Oh,
cents. That's
thank
just
you. I
my two
guess.
cents.
I mean, that's. I guess it comes down to. You've got to think about how you connect with people and audiences.
Yes,
And
definitely.
I mean, the term marketing sounds very.
Commercial?
I don't know. Yeah, I guess it does, and yeah, that's a good way to put it. It sounds very commercial, but I really see it as,
Art?
um, you know, in a way, and also like yeah, I mean, there's an art to it, but ultimately it comes down to how do I reach you? How do I
Exactly.
connect with you?
The
You know,
human
I want
psychology.
people to see what we have, and if they're going to see what I have to figure out how I make sure that they know I exist and how I know how I connect with the right groups of
Yeah.
people in a way that's positive.
I bet you
And there
have
is
a
an
lot
art
of
to that.
interest in human psychology as well.
I do, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, and that's also a natural part of being an actor and a filmmaker. You really need to, the more it's a constant study of
Yeah.
human nature. And
Uh-huh.
the more you understand other people, the more you understand yourself, and the more you can then reflect that back out to
Yeah.
others so that maybe they can do the same through your work
Exactly.
and evaluate themselves. And then, of course, by understanding that, you also understand a little bit more about people's habits, the way they think, the way they consume media, why
Yeah.
they do it, what is it that's going to make them, that's going to be beneficial for them that they will appreciate, and
What
then how do
clicks?
you
What
lead with it?
clicks?
Exactly, yeah. It's important to just consider all of these things carefully, and then you try a lot of things, and some things work and some things don't, and you keep going and get better at it. And
You
I think the
improvise and
most important
improvise, yeah.
thing, though, is to always approach it with a sense of caring
Uh-huh.
about your audience and caring about your people, and that your goal is to simply most efficiently present the audience with something that they will appreciate a lot,
Right.
and that's the key, I think.
Uh-huh.
So we just keep looking for more and more efficient ways of doing that in a way that's respectful.
Uh-huh. So, thank you so much for your time, Eric. It's been a great interview, and I got some really great insights from the interview as well. Thank you for your time. I know you're a busy man. You gotta do some more work right after the interview, and
A lot, yeah.
so thank you for taking the time out for a screen bench. And we have a lot of fans that keep on, asking about you or keep sending in emails. Are you gonna, interview Mr. Eric? Or they ask about certain projects that you do. So we collectively, then see how much of audience is, demanding a particular uh, actor or a producer or a filmmaker, and you're all three of them.
Oh
So,
wow, well yeah. I
yeah.
guess I am. Well, thank you.
In fact, more
That's
than
really
that. In
lovely
fact,
to
more
hear.
than that. So, yeah, we definitely did get a lot of uh, request for your interview, and you were very kind for aligning the timings and everything. Uh, Despite being so busy, you were very flexible with your timings and giving us the appointment for your interview. I really appreciate that. So thank you so
Well,
much.
it's a pleasure, and it's an honor. I appreciate everything you guys do, and
Yeah,
you're getting a lot of really good information out there for my fellow film nerds, which is ultimately
yeah,
what I am.
yeah.
And thanks for your work, and I'm very glad to be here and
Thank you
be
so much.
happy to come on another
That is
time.
very uplifting for us and the entire team of Green Bench.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Goodbye and see you again.
Okay, I'll look forward to that.
Okay, okay.
Keep in
Bye
touch.
bye. Loved it.